after 43 years of calling Celtics games. Round 2 of the Masters down at Augusta underway, and Scotty Scheffler is now all alone in first place at 7 under par through 12 today. Max Homa, Bryson DeChambeau behind him at 6 under par. Both of them are done with this round. And the Red Sox, swept by the Orioles, now welcoming the LA Angels at Fenway Park. Start of the 3-game weekend series tonight with Tanner Houck going up against Reed Detmers. Rafael Devers out again with his bad shoulder. First pitch, weather permitting, at 7:10. Headlines are brought to you by Dulce Vita Tequila, America's #1 selling organic tequila. Try Dulce Vita's Blanco, Reposado, Anejo, and flavor tequilas. Dulce Vita Spirits, Austin, Texas. Tequila, pure and simple. Viva Dulce Vita responsibly. I'm Jim Murray, Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Sports Hub. Matt McCarthy has you next in a half.
You want to talk sports? We want to talk sports.
Squeeze the chicken and open the mouth.
It's like we were meant for each other.
This is why you need us.
98.5 The Sports Hub. Now,
You have dog crap in your system.
this is the Baseball Hour with Tony Maz.
They did nothing this offseason.
Brought to you by Bigelow Tea, Gravely Zero Turn Lawnmowers, Corona, Jackson Lumber, Blue Moon Belgian White, Team Impact, and FindMassMoney.com on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
And a ground ball to first, backing up Mountcastle. He'll flip to the pitcher. That is it. Baltimore sweeps. They win this one in 10 innings. And it was a miserable night, not just talking about the weather in the end. A close game broken open by the Orioles, 9-4 the final.
You saw that a couple times in this series, right? Late in games, Red Sox maybe not making that one play or two plays that they needed to make, and they can't do it against a team like the Orioles. They're just too good.
Well, there you go. That's Lou Merloni in the broadcast last night. Dave O'Brien as well. Red Sox lose to the Baltimore Orioles again over at Fenway Park. Blow the lead, I think 9-4 was the final, if I remember right. 9-4 was the final score. In extra innings, Orioles blew it open with 6 runs in the 10th inning. They were trailing 2-1 in the 8th. Red Sox gave up a 2-run homer, blah, blah, blah. You know the whole story. Anyway, 617-779-0985 is your number here on Roundtable Friday on the Baseball Hour with Tyler Milliken, Matt McCarthy, and yours truly. We'll get to your phone calls. We'll open up the phones right away. There is a lot to get to from the week, as there always is. And what I've asked these guys to do is, and I'm going to tee them up, but to pick one thing at the start of the show that we can address. We'll get to some others as the night goes along here on the program. So tonight we will start with Matt McCarthy. When you were looking at the Red Sox big expenditures, there's been a lot of talk about how they build the roster, Matt. Mm-hmm. But when you look at their big expenditures, what do you see?
I see guys underperforming across the board. Like, we focus so much on, the fact that the Red Sox are not spending money the way they used to, and obviously that's a fair take and a fair opinion. But the guys they have spent their money on have pretty much all sucked this year. Your highest paid player, Rafael Devers, $29 million. He's hitting under 200. He's got a bum shoulder, can't field. Trevor Story, your second highest paid player at $22.5 million this year. He's hurt again. He's been terrible with the Red Sox. He's a good fielder, can't do much else. Runs the bases fine, pretty well. But Bobby Dahlbeck, he has struck out 30 more times than Bobby Dahlbeck over the course of the last 2+ seasons in the same number of games played. Trevor Story has not been good enough. Lucas Giolito, your third highest paid player, $18 million. He's hurt. Don't need to say anything more about that. Masataka Yoshida, also paid $18 million. He's a DH. He's a slap hitter. Can't play the field. Hits for no power. It has totally prevented this team from improving their roster, keeping a guy like Justin Turner around, because you have to play this slap hitter at DH because he can't play left field. And then Kenley Jansen, fifth on the list, $16 million. Came into camp out of shape, hasn't given them much. There you go. Those are your 5 highest paid players on the Boston Red Sox. It is unbelievable. Yes, they don't spend money the way they used to, but the way they have spent their money, and this is on the baseball people, this is on Chaim Bloom, this is on Craig Breslow. Sorry, that's not good enough. Wow.
I mean, so just quickly, run through the top 5 just by name. The top 5 highest paid guys on the team again. Do it quickly.
Devers, Story, Giolito, Yoshida, Jansen.
It's unbelievable.
That's bad, man.
I mean, when you look at those guys being your highest paid players, maybe there's a reason why the Red Sox are where they are. Now, look, I'm not going to pick on Devers because in the grand scheme, I think Devers is going to hit if he's healthy. If he's not healthy, that's something different. But Story's number 2, Giolito's number 3. What does that say about your roster? Tyler, you go.
Yeah, I think the craziest thing we're still watching here, and that makes absolutely no sense, is that Ceddanne Rafaela is not playing shortstop for your team. We've watched David Hamilton, who was an absolute disaster out there a year ago. So bad they just ended up saying, go back down to AAA. We didn't want to see it anymore. What is the point of having a guy like Ceddanne Rafaela who's able to handle shortstop at an above-average level on your team, and you're holding him in center field? Alex Cora said yesterday before the game, I would like to get Wilyer Abreu more at-bats, more consistent at-bats against righties. Okay, well, let's just do the math here. You want Jarren Duran in the lineup every day. He's been one of your best players, right? Tyler O'Neill, arguably the best hitter in baseball through 2 weeks of the season. Those two guys are locked in. Wilyer Abreu, who showed up last night, got 2 hits for you. That fills out your outfield. Why could you not put Ceddanne Rafaela at shortstop at least 3 to 4 times a week here? 3 to 4, call it just against righties. If you want to keep Abreu protected against lefties, which is, Cora's kind of thing. He doesn't want to put young guys in a bad spot. Awesome. You can shift Rafaela back there on those days. You look at how bad the defense has become. When I came here last week and we talked about where the Red Sox defense was at, they were 6th best in terms of outs above average, 7th best in terms of defensive runs saved. Since then, where they rank now, 22nd best in outs above average, 21st best in defensive runs saved. How bad are they in terms of errors? They have the 2nd most in baseball. Who's the only team ahead of them? The pathetic ball club we talked about a week ago in Oakland, who has 15. You're tied for 2nd with the Yankees at 13. It makes 0 sense to me why Rafaela cannot be playing shortstop, at least on a regular basis. Last night, you had David Hamilton at shortstop and Rafaela at 2nd base, so you'll play him on the infield. Why is the better defender not at short? On ground balls alone, before Trevor Story went down, hitters had a 192 batting average. Since he went down, it's 338. So if you hit a ball on the ground against the Red Sox, you're hitting 338. That is a disaster for any ball club, especially one with young pitchers you're hoping to make a step forward. Inexcusable to me. I think it's a front office decision because when Breslow was asked, he was the first person to say, we like Rafaela in center. For Cora, a middle infielder, you're telling me he doesn't want the guy in Rafaela who can at least touch the 2nd base bag on a routine double play? It's awful.
Okay, so Tyler, just quickly, say that again, because that stat you gave at the beginning relates to how bad the Red Sox defense has been the last week. Coming home from the trip, right? Coming home from the trip, they were 6th and 7th in the league in those metrics.
Yep.
6th and 7th in baseball.
The whole sport.
Okay, so that puts them in the top 25% in the game, basically.
Exactly.
Okay, in the top 25%, and they're now 21st or 22nd?
22nd in outs above average, 21st in defensive runs saved.
Right, so they've gone to the bottom third. Think of that. What a precipitous drop that has been in the last week. Really not even. I mean, it's one series. Right? I got that right?
And you
one
still
series.
And you still have all those marks from the first week of the season. So that's how bad you were the second week, that you not only became not even average from being good, you became below average, bottom 10.
And the second week's not even over yet. You're barely halfway through it. You get 3 more games. So here's where I'll start. Just again, if you want to call in, now's the time to do it. 617-779-0985. I already see a couple of you lined up, and we'll get to you. The only thing I'm going to add is this about last night's game, because these guys did a good job of covering it. If you were looking to see where the Red Sox rate in baseball, this was your first chance. This series was your first chance. The Baltimore Orioles last year won the division. They won 101 games, and by the way, got bounced in the playoffs quickly. They were gone in the first round,
Yep,
correct?
They sure were.
First round, they got bounced. They were 23 games better than you a year ago, and yet they are considered a championship caliber club. Now, again, they've added some pieces, but they won 101 games a year ago. You were 23 games behind them last season. They just wiped the floor with you. And this is my way of saying, if you are a Red Sox fan, and I'm not picking on the Red Sox fans, I'm really picking on the organization, the team's nowhere close. They're nowhere close. They are nowhere close to beating the Baltimore Orioles. Corbin Burns shoved the bats down their throats in the home opener here on Monday. And then in the other 2 games of the series, the Red Sox blew it late because they couldn't contain the Baltimore lineup. The point is, Baltimore has an ace. You don't. Your bullpen couldn't hold the leads. You got absolutely manhandled in the late innings of these games. Your defense was atrocious. All over the place, there were mistakes. You did not come close. They might be worse than they were a year ago.
Well, I mean, again, it goes to that point that I made. The 5 highest paid players on the team: Devers, Story, Giolito, Yoshida, Jansen. That's not good enough. I mean, the talent's not there, Maz. And we talked last week, and the ultimate swing and a miss take from me and basically everybody on this program last week, that maybe they weren't going to be all that good, but they were going to be a functional baseball team because they were fielding better the first week of the season. They don't have a guy who can field a ground ball and throw it to first at this point, all because Trevor Story got hurt. I mean, that's pretty remarkable. I get that Story's a good defender, but if you're counting on Trevor Story that much, and the loss of Trevor Story is this devastating, to your point, Milliken, and it has been over the course of the last week, man, your team was nowhere near good enough in the first place. This is remarkable.
So, Tyler, just quickly, you think that Cora probably wants Rafaela at shortstop, but Breslow does not?
I just don't see how you could think the roster could function any other way. When we talk about what happened last year, it was Trevor Story being out that led to all these problems. And this is what's so crazy to me. Jarren Duran, he's not winning a Gold Glove. There was no one watching the Red Sox last year that said, oh, the defense sucks because Jarren Duran's in center field. He was average. He was 57th percentile, outs above average out there. If anything, we gave him credit for the work he put out there. So why are you scared to go put him in center field now? I think this is Craig Breslow, and this is where the front office and ownership stand, where they say, this year we never thought about competing. This year was never about anything like that. So why are we going to take Ceddanne Rafaela out of center field when that's where we want him playing the next 5 years? You may care about winning tonight. We don't really care. This year's about development. It's about these guys taking the next step forward. I think to them, that's how they value this whole equation, which is stupid because you're not doing what's best for a young team. And when you have young players on your team and they lose games like that last night, that's the stuff that can ruin player development for pitchers, for hitters, because it's a losing culture and it's nothing short of embarrassing.
Okay, let's bring in Martin from Texas, who'll open up the callers for us tonight. Martin, what do you got?
Hey, guys. All offseason, Tom Warner and Alex Cora and them went on and on about, well, not so much Cora, but they went on and on about how they improved the defense. They can be like a squeak in the playoffs with 90 wins or 85 wins. But last year, Kike Hernandez couldn't throw the ball to first. Now they can't even get the ball in their glove, let alone even attempt to throw it to first. So everything that Tyler has been going on about for the past 5 minutes is the most logical, most sensible thing that they could possibly do, and I don't understand why they're not doing it yet, other than Breslow having his hands in too much of the say.
Okay, so this is a dilemma, though. And this is the kind of stuff that happened under Chaim Bloom. It's a good point by Tyler. The manager wants to win now. He's got to suffer through the season. And when I say win now, compete now. Okay, they've got, what are they now, 7-6? So they got 149 games to go. 149 games to go. And you're going to keep trotting that out at shortstop every night?
Can't do it.
Where a guy doesn't remember to touch the bag on a double play, and I say doesn't remember or can't get his feet right or whatever, he misses the bag on a double play.
Let's not forget the Orioles challenged not once, but twice in this series because he came close to missing the bag on both of those plays.
And in the first game, he had a ball go right through his legs like Pablo Reyes did last night. And my question was Ceddanne Rafaela. We don't know if he's ever going to hit in the big leagues. And I'm fine with the extension. It's $6.5 million a year. Kevin Kiermaier got $10.5 million for 1 year. If you can hit somewhat and play good defense in center, it's not a problem. But where Rafaela's biggest value is the fact that he can give you great defense in center field and at shortstop. That's his biggest value to the team. Why aren't you taking advantage of it? That's just not using your players correctly.
So I'll tell you what, I was against the idea of moving Rafaela out of center field before because I just thought, why make yourself weaker at two positions? I don't think they have a choice. They don't have anyone else that can play it.
Yeah, infield defense is more important than outfield defense.
Definitely. And if he stays out there, then Tyler, I think you're 100% right. I think it is 100% about, nope, we got to get him ready to play center field in the big leagues because that's where he is for us long term, and we're leaving him out there. And their shortstop play could be historically bad if that's how it goes down. So, 617-779-0985. When we come back, I want to play something for you that Lou Merloni said in the game last night that I really think was a clarification from Alex Cora. Okay, a clarification from Alex Cora. We'll get to that when we come back on the Baseball Hour.
Stay tuned for more of the Baseball Hour.
That was Lou Merlone during the game last night in the 8th inning. I want to make this part clear because anytime you start talking about announcers, people think you're criticizing the announcers. I'm not. I think the world of Lou. I love him. And I think he's good in the booth. So, I've said this publicly too. Sometimes I think all the players get a little too technical for the average fan. If you look at where his, right foot is and blah, 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 I get it, but I just think for the average fan, sometimes their faces gloss over. It's more of commentary for a player talking to another player than it is a player talking to the fan, and I think some of the guys in the booth miss that. But it's normal. Of course they would miss it because they're players. Now, this comment, I think that Alex Cora said something to Lou Merlone because he wanted to clarify something he said on opening day. And we gave him grief. In fact, on Felger and Maz, we gave him grief. On opening day, after they lost, Cora said, we are where we're at, or we're at where we're at.
We have a lot of young guys. This is kind of what it is.
Okay. But he uses that particular phrase a lot. This is where we're at. Okay. And again, remember it phrased that way. This is where we're at. Now, again, English is Cora's second language. Okay. So he's got some verbal crutches, but this is one that he uses. And again, I'm not criticizing his English. But I think Cora is sensitive to the idea that the Red Sox are, quote, giving up or quitting. For lots of reasons. One, I think he knows he was party to it over the last 2 years. He made a comment at the end of last season like, I haven't done my job well. Okay, I've got to do a better job of keeping us on the beam. Secondly, he's in a contract year, and if it happens again, it further potentially hurts his reputation or chance to get a job somewhere else. Now, that also said, I do think that Cora's heart's in the right place in terms of, I want to go out and do a good job, whatever that is. Okay, most people do. So I don't dispute any of that. But I think that he was probably having a discussion with Lou or multiple people and said, listen, this might have come off a certain way on opening day. That's not what I meant. When I said that we're where we're at, I mean right now, look at our infield. Raffy's hurt. We lost Story. Grissom's supposed to be our second baseman. We don't even have him. And that thought didn't occur to me until last night when Merlone said it during the broadcast. We just played it. I want to play it again so you can hear it because I never even factored in Grissom. Now, I don't know how good Grissom is going to be at second base. I don't think Grissom's a good fielder. There's a reason the Braves moved him to second. Okay?
Lou would tell you he saw him throwing at second base. The arm angles were very uncomfortable. He did not look like he was ready to handle second in a big league game yet.
But I will say that 3/4 of their starting infield is now out. Okay? Devers isn't playing again tonight. So, Jimmy, and again, I want you to remember that phrase, this is where we're at. Okay? This is where we're at. Jimmy, let's play Merlone again.
Cora was talking about some of these guys, these middle infielders. You know, a guy like Hamilton coming up to the big leagues, kind of giving them some time to kind of slow the game down, like trusting the process. They are where they are. They lost Trevor Story. They thought Vaughn Grissom was going to be your second baseman and get Devers out here tonight. So this wasn't the infield they thought. So, this is where you're at.
This is where you're at. So I don't know. Now, again, I covered a team. I know what it's like. And oftentimes the manager would say something, you'd walk away from it, and he'd say, don't quote me on this, but, and then you'd walk away and go, well, he's got a good point. So 3/4 of their infield is out. I just think Cora wants to make sure people understand what this is where we're at means.
And that's a term that he uses a lot, and I think it's a term he uses deliberately. I mean, we've played many cuts from Cora over the years, Maz, particularly in the last 2 years, where he said stuff like, well, the roster is the roster. This is where we're at. Stuff like that we have harped on. And all of that, I think, is very deliberate. I think that's a very deliberate term that Alex Cora uses because it's a really nice way of saying, yeah, do you see what we have at shortstop? The guy sucks. All right? Do you see what I've been given? This guy can't play. These guys can't play. He says this stuff a lot, so I see the connection that you're drawing there, and I could see that was maybe a bit of a message from Alex Cora on the broadcast.
Yeah, listen, I'm going to say this in the interest of disclosure, too. Over the years, a little bit, I've kept in touch with Cora some, not a ton. I haven't talked to him in a long time. Texted with him in a long time, messaged with him in a long time. I've had no contact with Alex Cora for I can't tell you how long. None. So I'm not getting it from Cora. I'm just telling you, I heard it during the game last night and said, oh, here's what probably happened.
That's a Cora-ism.
Okay, because I do know that Cora pays attention to what is said and what is written. He pays attention. He knows.
Yeah, he's a media guy, former media guy. He cares about this.
Now, there's one other thing I want to play for you guys from the game. This was later. What Maloney said last night was in the 8th inning after they failed to turn the double play. And then, they were on the verge of blowing the game, and then Wong homered. Okay? Now they get into the 10th, and the Orioles go ahead. And, the talk is, look at the Orioles, look at the young players, look how good they are. And Kevin Millar started talking about roster building, and he said this.
Buying, but you just don't go out and buy players. You can't go out and buy, eight players. You have to build, draft, and then when you're great, and your draft obviously has gone great, you can add your Corbin Burns, and then you come around the All-Star break, and you see what's going on and where you are health-wise. You bring in Craig Kimbrell at the back end of his career to help this bullpen. Batista goes down.
Okay, so now, again, he goes on and on to say, but basically saying that the Orioles augmented their roster with free agency, not the other way around. That's coming from Red Sox ownership.
No doubt about it.
And maybe Craig Breslow. And this is, now again, I'm not blaming Millar for it. He's just telling you how they feel, not in so many words. But I think Millar's close to ownership. Obviously, they brought him back to do the games. And, my understanding is there are some members of ownership that are particularly fond of Millar. Fine, whatever. But I think that in conversations with them, that comes out, and so then Millar says it, which is fine. Red Sox ownership is wrong. Okay, they're wrong. It's an excuse for not going out and building the rest of your team, whether it's before you have the nucleus or not. So if the argument is the Red Sox are not going to build their roster until they have a good farm system, when's that going to be?
That's the garbage. The Baltimore Orioles don't spend money. That's the whole point of why they sit in a 5-year rebuild where nothing is spent and they got all these top draft picks year after year after year. The Red Sox have money. You are never supposed to reach those levels as an organization. And say what you will. I know a lot of people are looking at the Orioles core right now and saying, well, look at where the Red Sox are. How do you expect them to compete? There is a young core on this team that last year showed a lot and helped keep you in the race until the trade deadline. It was them who, Tom Warner, you want to go and tell me they were an 88 or 89 win team with better defense? You did nothing to supplement those guys. We see what Jarren Duran is. We see how special of a player he has been so far. Cutter Crawford, what Garrett Whitlock has given you. Tristan Casas, Brian Bayo. You have a young core. You refuse to supplement them with those pieces and help those guys grow into the players they want to be. The Red Sox should never be viewed like the Baltimore Orioles. It is important to draft well and to build up your farm system and all those things. The Red Sox have the ability to do both at the same time. They just choose not to because you have to spend money, and that's not what they want to do.
Millar was also missing a key point about the Orioles and the Red Sox and the differences between those two franchises. The Orioles were just sold, and that's when the day after David Rubenstein bought that team, they traded for Corbin Burns. Or somewhere in the days after that. They signed Craig Kimbrell, all of that. Like, the Orioles, to your point, Milliken,
new fire.
Yes, they have new fire, but they did it the way the Red Sox should never do it. The Red Sox should never go into the tank for more than half a decade to end up with the Gunnar Hendersons, the Colton Cowsers, the Jackson Holidays, all of that. That should never, ever be like, well, see, you should do it this way. Not in Boston. Ever should you tolerate that. And you know what? The Red Sox have kind of half-assed done that over the last 4 years. They don't have a single pitcher in the organization worth a damn coming up through the minor league system. And where exactly has it gotten you? Because they haven't executed on trying to do that plan a little bit too, and that's a really frustrating thing. Like, where are we at?
So
this is where we're at.
So you got to wait for Marcelo Meyer, Kyle Teal, and Roman Anthony all to get here and they have to get acclimated to the big leagues before you even sign a free agent?
Of course, Maz. You don't expect them just to come up and be superstars, do you? Xander Bogaerts took a year, did he not? It was awesome what he did in 2013. 2014, he was getting booed off the field because he couldn't play defense. Jackie Bradley Jr. took years. Mookie Betts took time to become the superstar he became. That's why 2018 was so special, because you had all these young players that had the growing pains, and then it all came together with those veterans. But where it's all so complicated here, if you supplemented the young core you had now, you could be a mid-80s win team, and then you have those three all come up, and then your window opens. That's how you compete immediately. But if you're fine kicking the can down the road, and you don't care how fans are feeling or if they're upset, this is the plan you go. You say, hey, 2 years from now, maybe everything's ready. Maybe we'll bank on three guys. You never know what's going to happen. It's just irresponsible and it's lazy.
I mean, you bring these guys up into an environment that underachieves and loses, you know what they're going to become? Losing players. They're going to become losing players. They're going to get acclimated to the losing. They're going to say, oh, this is how it's done here. Then they're going to get to a certain point and say, get me the hell out. I don't want to be here anymore. You got to put, I'm not saying, Kevin Millar said you can't go out and sign 8 players. I'm not asking for 8. Can you sign a few?
How about a utility infielder who can field a ground ball and throw it to first?
Can you sign a couple?
Wouldn't hate that.
How about a veteran pitcher that could take a little bit of the pressure off of Garrett Whitlock and of Tanner Houck and of Cutter Crawford? And then again, because we still don't know whether they can all be starters. We still don't know.
And supplement a bullpen that is carrying a very heavy workload already, because then you would have one of Garrett Whitlock or Tanner Houck back there. And you wouldn't be asking Cooper Criswell to probably start for you tomorrow, who was so useless and unimpressive that the Rays said, I'm good. We don't even want to bring him back. They'll take any arm and burn him if they think they could get 100 innings out of him.
So, in any case, headlines here. Matt McCarthy. We'll have your headlines.
We're going to switch it up on you every single week.
I gave a look to Kevin Majori behind the glass because last week I got scolded.
And he's chowing down back there, so I don't think he doesn't look ready to give a sports hub headline to me.
Matt McCarthy, get you caught up on headlines. When we come back, we'll get to your calls, and also we'll touch on what was, quite frankly, the most underreported or the dumbest play in last night's game that's not getting talked enough about. How about that? Should be getting talked about more when we come back. Well, that really didn't end up costing you last night. Wong had to go in and play second base. You ended up losing the DH as a result because Yoshida had to go into the field. It almost did cost you, though, and I'll tell you why in a second. That was Reese McGuire getting ejected from the game when the Red Sox had nobody left on their bench. A colossal mistake. And it just speaks to sort of being out to lunch with the reality of what's going on in the game because they weren't going to put Rafael Devers into play last night. Sore shoulder. He's out again tonight. So, but again, we'll get to McGuire in a second. Let's take a couple of calls. Adam's in Pawtucket. Adam, what do you got?
Hey, how's it going, guys? So I just wanted to quickly touch on the Baltimore series. So this is what I was kind of afraid of us showing the Red Sox showing their true colors against a real team. From Corbin Burns just mowing us down, shoving it down our throat after the Tyler O'Neill home run, and then the next game, the 5-0 lead, throwing the baseball around the whole field, just looking like amateurs. I don't know. It's looking real bad. And then Tony, about a week ago, you asked me how I thought about the whole change in how the pitching and Corbin and the
Andrew Bailey,
pitches.
Andrew Bailey, yep.
Andrew Bailey, sorry, and the off-speed pitches. And I'm telling you right now, with Nick Pivetta and the way he's throwing that sweeper a lot more than he has been. I think it's what the big picture is going to be. I just wanted to see how you felt about that.
Yeah, so look, I think it's related to the injury. I think his injury is related to the change in approach. But you guys go. Matt, you go first.
Yeah, I mean, so we talked about this the other day on Zolak and Bertrand. It's impossible for me to say whether or not it's directly tied to it. If I start seeing 2, 3, 4 guys go down with similar elbow injuries, then I'll pin it on Andrew Bailey. I can't pin a one-off on Andrew Bailey and say it's automatically because of the change in using the sweeper a little bit more.
I'll also add on the Nick Pivetta front, when he showed up to spring training this year, the Red Sox weren't happy with him. He showed up like fully built up and ready to go. He had quotes. You can go back and read them. I want to come first day spring training, ready to face hitters, full go. The Red Sox ramped him down and had to slow him down for multiple weeks and say, hey, we're not putting you in games or anything like that. That's why he was the last starter to get into games. I'm not saying that's the reason. I do think the sweeper in that part of the conversation's fair because Chris Murphy's gone down, right? Lucas Giolito went down. Noah Song has also gone down with Tommy John. So those are all fair points. I just think this is what baseball is. And if you want to compete with teams like the Dodgers or the Rays and these other clubs, the Dodgers, look at Dustin May and Walker Buehler. They burn through arms. But if you want to compete from a pitching standpoint, this is kind of the stuff you need to do. You need to take these risks to get there. Because while we'll talk about these injuries, is anyone going to talk about why Cutter Crawford was able to go 5 innings the other day when he threw 19 of his final 20 pitches as sweepers so he could get out of that inning because he couldn't locate with the fastball at all? Are we going to talk about Garrett Whitlock, who yesterday threw his cutter as much as his changeup, a new pitch to kind of get by and mix those arsenals?
Okay, but Tyler, let me just stop here. Let's not talk about 5 innings like they're going 8. Okay?
No, but it's better than what it was a year ago. It's a step forward.
Okay, but again, it's a small step forward because they suck so bad. So let's not go too far with it. Now, can it? I'm okay for throwing breaking balls. I'm just saying there's a trade-off. And Matt, to your point quickly about, you don't want to put it on Andrew Bailey yet either. None of us knows. Mm-hmm. None of us knows. But he mentioned Giolito. Tyler did. Giolito's throwing his slider harder this spring than he usually does. Yep. His elbow popped.
Well, I mean, I would also say, was this waiting to happen with Giolito because he was a good pitcher up until the last 2 years? He has not been effective. Is this a John Lackey type of situation where the performance goes before the elbow type of deal? So, again, if we see this 3, 4, 5 times and this becomes, a common thread, then I'll pin it on Andrew Bailey. I'm
just telling you that again. And look, there's all kinds of research out there. The slider puts a lot of strain on your arm. Okay, it puts a lot of strain on your arm.
No doubt.
Dr. James Andrews was the one. He said he believes when it comes to the breaking ball, when you're throwing it harder than 85 miles per hour, that's the difference. That's when you start to see damage and that stuff.
And that's the slider.
Yep.
Curves are usually in the high 70s, low 80s. A slider, it could be anywhere from, call it 83, 84 to 87, 88.
The only other thing I'll say on Bailey, if we're being fair, you look at what he did with the Giants. They weren't high on Tommy Johns. Actually, before they got there, they were. They were top 3 in MLB from 2016 to 2019. They didn't go over the wall. They had Carlos Rodon and Kevin Gausman, guys with injury problems, actually go there and thrive underneath
Okay,
them.
then let me ask you another question. Why did the Giants let him go?
I think Bailey was looking for different opportunities because, look, he had an option to become the bench coach of the New York Yankees. There were multiple teams that lined up and wanted Andrew Bailey. I think he looked at where the Giants were, an organization that's been pretty similar to the Red Sox recently, and said, let me go chase something, and I'm going to go work for my boy, Craig Breslow, who I spend time with off the field, I play baseball with. This could be my way to become manager when Alex Cora is gone a year from now.
I would tell you, look, again, I got to see more of Bailey. He's taken it too far. What do you get, Jimmy?
I believe that Andrew Bailey wanted to be on the East coach, which is part of what Milliken said. And I also think that Breslow may have promised him the manager's job after Alex Cora either gets fired or leaves or whatever, just based on the fact that Andrew Bailey was running a lot of the spring training camps early on in camp, not Alex Cora's bench coach. Yeah, that's a red flag to me, or an alarm goes off.
Lovely. Oh no, that's great because pitching coaches have such a great history when it comes to being manager.
Sean Farrell won a World Series here.
I thought Joe Kerrigan was great.
Dean at Shrewsbury. Dean, what do you got?
So the Red Sox in 2021 kept claiming that they didn't go into the luxury tax because it would have been 3 out of 4 years and it would have been cost prohibitive. Well, it's 3 years later and they're still not in the luxury tax. Every single one of their 4 World Series teams was in the luxury tax. Now, you don't want to get stuck in a situation. I understand the ownership does need to make money, in that all 4 of their World Series years they didn't. But they could overpay players on 1-year deals just to get us into playoff contention and have some meaningful games without really rocking the boat in terms of the money they're making. And they have no excuse for not going into the luxury tax at least once in a while. It's been Dean, 5 years now.
Yeah, Dean, I agree with you. And I'll tell you what, independent of the luxury tax, which they are about, what, $25 million underneath right now?
They're actually closer after the Cedon Rafaela extension. They're at $222, so they're about $15 million below.
Why did they rip up Rafaela's salary for this year?
Yeah, so it started this year. It's $6.5 million added on to what they have.
Oh, that is stupid. They should have just tacked it on. And not they ripped up this year and gave him a raise?
The whole deal with the option year included, it all starts at $6.5 million as a luxury tax hit the entire
contract. Does it start this year or next year?
It starts this year.
Because usually when they announce it after opening day, Tyler, it means that the luxury tax number stays the same.
So Devers was one of those guys. Obviously, it was before, but his deal kicked in the following year. No, it's this year for Rafaela.
And Rafaela should want the deal to start now, because then that would take an extra year of free agency away from him. Like, honestly, to get that deal done at $6.5 million per year, eating up 2 years of free agency, you had to give him the $6.5 million for this year.
Yeah. Brian Bayo's deal also started this year as well.
Again, for the reason why they, again, they didn't have to sign, at least Rafaela, they didn't have to sign him now. Rafaela wasn't going to, we still don't know what he is. I'm not telling you the contract's going to be prohibitive and hurt them. He doesn't feel like the kind of guy to me you'd extend for just 40 games into his big league career. Carl on the Cape. Carl, go.
Hey, fellas. Great listening to you. 3 best baseball guys on 98.5. And I mean that.
It's a small group.
Listen,
go ahead, Carl. What do you got?
It's time to rip the Band-Aid off. Marcelo Mayer, I've seen enough of him. He's not a shortstop. He's probably a third baseman. And it's really about his feet work. He's not a very fast runner. He's not a very fast guy. I think it's time to take Mayer and Cespedes, pair them up, go get a real shortstop. Go get yourself the shortstop of the future.
Okay, Carl, I'm going to let you go because I'm not ready to look, have you guys heard anything about Meyer not being able to play short?
There's some people that have pushed that, but I will tell you the Sox prospect guys who are on it, they told you before when they were trying to push narratives, the Red Sox, that David Hamilton could play shortstop. They said he's a disaster. They have been high on his defense. The concerns are more with the bat in all reality. Him being able to handle breaking stuff and consistently hit stuff in the zone, that's where he struggled. He's off to a good start in 3 games this year, but it's 3 games. We need to see more.
Yeah, I haven't heard too much negatively about him defensively. I don't think he's going to win a Gold Glove or anything like that.
Corey Seager.
Yeah, but the hope is he's a hitter, right? And he's going to play a quality shortstop and be Xander Bogaerts from the left side. If you're trading Marcelo Meyer, though, unless you're getting Bobby Witt Jr., you need to get a pitcher, all right? They have these 3 really premium young hitters in the farm system, Meyer, Anthony, Teal. They don't have anybody anywhere who can pitch. So if you're trading one of those guys, and I think you ultimately should trade one of those guys because they're all left-handed hitters. All right, how many lefties are you going to have here eventually on the big league roster? You need to get pitching in return. They don't have enough pitching in the organization.
I think that becomes even tougher now, though, with Trevor Story, right? You look at him like Chris Sale. You can't depend on anything moving forward. Who is going to be your shortstop of the future? How are you going to kind of handle that? Marcelo Myers is really the only guy. The guy they drafted, and Mikey Romero, could be a total wash. He's now having back injuries and all these problems. Yoel Cespedes, we're talking guys who are in the DSL right now last year. There's really not a solution at shortstop that's nearby.
And Tyler, tell people what the DSL is.
The Dominican Summer League.
Okay, there you go. And that is the
for
equivalent.
16-year-olds.
I was going to say, that is a level lower than A-ball. Correct?
Yep, correct.
Okay, I'm just so people understand it.
What if you can trade Marcelo Mayer for...
I say this with all love in my heart, Jimmy. I had this thing with Tyler on the phone the other day. You ever notice he speaks in acronyms?
Oh, yeah.
All the time.
That's in the DSL, and then he dropped an OAA on me the other day. Do you know what OAA is, Jimmy?
Not a clue.
Outs above average?
Bingo.
Good job, McCarthy.
Wow.
You're a nerd.
Oh,
See
that's
again.
not
How
good.
old are you, McCarthy?
32.
Okay, well, that explains it. This is why, Tyler, when I asked the question the other day of who would win the 2004 Red Sox or 2018 Red Sox, I restricted voting to everyone 35 and older.
I respect it because I wasn't old enough to watch 04, but I will say this, 07 would compete pretty well against that
The
04
04
team.
Red Sox would beat the 2018 Red Sox.
And McCarthy, I
sweep 'em.
value your opinion tremendously, but you're still 32. You're not allowed to vote.
Yes.
With the 04 Red Sox?
You got to. I know you have the right answer. How old were you in 04?
I was 13 years old.
Yeah, not quite old enough.
Been watching baseball for, consciously for 8 years at that point. I think I can have a vote with that.
Not
Closer
quite
to me,
old
McCarthy.
enough. Not quite old enough.
Naz
Jimmy,
is
what
an
do you got?
ageist, remember.
That's
Yes.
right. Yes, this is bad.
You have to have been at least 15 years old to have some understanding of what that World Series
What
meant.
the hell is the difference between 15 and 13?
2 years.
Anthony in a car. That's right, puberty.
Good
Anthony in a
math,
car.
Jimmy.
Anthony, go.
It's a baseball hour.
What's
not
up,
Felder
fellas?
Naz.
Just wanted to ask why, if we're following the model of, say, the Braves locking up young talent on the cheap early, why are we spending money on guys like Rafaela who haven't done anything when we have somebody in Cassis who we could lock up?
Okay.
Why, what's the log jam there?
Excellent question. Do you have an answer?
Yeah, because he's going to cost more.
He's right. That's exactly it.
It is the right answer.
Really
That's
simple.
why I'm laughing.
Yep.
Exactly what I would have said.
Yeah,
Because he
50 million
costs more.
$50 million over 8 years is chump change. You're not getting Tristan Casas for that.
Listen, Rafaela's had 40 games in the big leagues. Less than that when they actually were negotiating and agreed to the deal.
Right, and he has about 3 hits in those 40 games.
Okay, so why wouldn't you accept $50 million if you were him?
It's easy to figure out. You look at Brian Bayo. Why does he sign an extension? Because he's a pitcher. The elbow could blow. Rafaela, he doesn't know if he's ever going to be able to hit. This might be the ceiling as a good defensive center fielder. Casas, he knows he's going to be a middle-of-the-order guy for the next 10, 15 years. You got to pay him like it.
Casas is a first-round draft pick. The other two guys were international signings. First-round draft pick. Okay, Jimmy's giving me the rap sign. What do we got tonight, Jimmy? We got anything on the show, on the air?
The Maine Celtics are playing tonight. Their pregame show's coming up next.
The Maine Celtics, the pregame show with Grandy and Max, followed by the actual game. Who is the opponent tonight for the Maine Celtics, Jimmy?
The Charlotte Bobcats, the Charlotte Hornets.
Oh, that's a winner. Well, I shouldn't say that on our air, should we? Anyway, Celtics basketball. Max and Grandy starting with pregame next. We'll catch you Monday.
This is the Baseball Hour with Tony Maz.
This is Sean Grandy. It's game day for the Boston Celtics. Tune in to the 98.5 The Sports Hub Celtics radio network for the opening tip presented by Gulf. It all starts here. Download the Gulf Pay app for 5 cents off per gallon every day. Gulf, the official fuel partner of the Boston Celtics.
Relationships and buildings have one thing in common. They both last.